Hi, and welcome to Thursday Comics. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, and I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee. This is the free comic book day sample version of the book, and the book itself will be available in August in comic book stores and in September at other retailers. There's a pre-order link in the show notes below that you can follow to pre-order the book. So speaking of Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, here's another one of their great collaborations. Journey into Mystery with The Mighty Thor, number 115. A new experience in greatness, the vengeance of the Thunder God. And yes, it is a new experience of greatness. My cover is kind of destroyed. The person who owns it, who actually signs the book in here, drew a handle for the T to make it into Thor's hammer. Which I think is a pretty cool idea, and I think they're kind of, playing up with the T in Thor, the way it's designed, and he just sort of followed it through to its conclusion. But what we see of the cover is pretty great. You have that rich 60s Marvel coloring on it with the deep shades, and this, this sort of version of the Absorbing Man with like the stony body and the steel head it looks really great, and you have Loki overseeing it all, Thor in this like extreme pose, tilting back. And yeah, it is a new experience in greatness. This is, with like the previous issue and this one, we're getting into that extended soap opera where as one story is kind of getting started, another one is ending and storylines are being, handed off. Storylines go from being B plots to A plots. So we're, there's not like a hard fixed end point, at the end of each issue. You might get a little bit of sort of a capper, like a moment to kind of cap things off, but the storylines are still, are still, going full speed ahead, with the previous issue and with this issue and for the foreseeable future. And he did the same thing to the T here. And Steve, if you're out there, hello. You had good taste in comics back in the 60s. I hope you've had, a wonderful life since then and many happy returns. Thor, the vengeance of the Thunder God. The evil Loki has captured Jane Foster. With those staggering words ringing in his ears, mighty Thor abandons his earthly battle with the Absorbing Man, as presented in Thor number 116, Stan. Like a living engine of destruction, the raging immortal returns to Asgard, braving the menace of Loki's deadly trap. Respectfully dedicated to you, the great new breed of magazine reader. Man, Stan is laying it on thick, doing his own particular brand of magic, and it works. Story by Stan Lee, the Sage of the Marvel Age. Penciling by Jack Kirby, the Rage of the Marvel Age. Inking by Frankie Ray, for his wage in the Marvel Age. Lettering by Artie Simic, from his cage in the Marvel Age. So yeah, everybody's getting comfortable in their roles here. Stan is, cracking wise in the credits boxes. And as usual, Jack Kirby is not just the penciler of this issue, he's also the co-writer. And I would argue the dominant creative partner on this exercise. Now this issue, I've had this one for a long time. I love it a lot. When I read this issue, I didn't have the one before it. So it's like, wow, it's starting off with like the end of an epic, like who knows what kind of big battle, Thor and Loki had in the previous issue. And this is just a beautiful shot, this downward shot from Loki's castle tower with all this ivy, all this growth along the side. Thor's climbing up, super angry. Now, of course, having read the previous issue, Thor, gets this quick summons to Asgard to go, get on his horse and ride to Loki's castle because Jane Foster's been captured. There wasn't too much more buildup than that, but still, right up from the previous issue. And now we're going to get that epic battle. And, it's pretty great. Thor and Loki, trade blows. Loki's got this magical sword that he's working with that can, pass through, like Thor's hammer can't even stop it. It can pass right through and stab at Thor. So we're getting an epic battle. And it's making me think of the epic battles we've been seeing in New God Sunday School. It's a lot of fun. It's really great. You can see how Kirby evolved and how, like, as much fun as this is, the intensity of the battles in New Gods kind of, make this stuff feel a little bit tepid in comparison. But I mean, this is, you weren't seeing stuff like this in superhero comics in the 60s until Kirby started doing it. It's this like really cool superhero slugfest and a really cool kind of like, mythic epic battle between enemies. And then we cut back to this guy. I forget his name. Harris Hobbs. I don't even know if they named him in the previous issue, but he's this reporter who's been on the trail of the Absorbing Man, and he's been through the ringer. So yeah, we're getting these ongoing epics, these incidental characters that are weaving themselves in and out. And yeah, Thor's battle with the Absorbing Man was left unresolved, and so now the Absorbing Man is going to bide his time. He's going to hole up in this house and figure out his next move, but it's not unoccupied. There's a family living out a drama, living out their 1950s Jack Kirby, Joe Simon romance comic story, or like the romance comics that Jack and Stan did a little before this and contemporaneous with this. Better put on an extra plate, lady. You're gonna have a guest. So these people are in trouble. We're gonna have sort of a hostage situation in the story. And now, Loki's weaving a bunch of smoky kind of spells around Thor with his magic sword, and it puts this wall between him and Thor, but Thor smashes it. And, now the battle's really heating up. It's turning into sort of a wrestling match. And I feel like Loki's had it. And then an explosion happens that separates the two warriors. Just really epic stuff. And I mean, just looking at Loki's gear and all this and the battles and stuff. I mean, this is totally like He-Man stuff. This is He-Man. That's, Skeletor or Merman or somebody. I imagine there were like piles of, Jack Kirby comics around as they're working on that stuff. Great silhouette of Odin here. And then we get a closer look at him in his costume. Thor, Loki gives, some bullshit story that he was only trying to stop Thor from committing blasphemy by bringing a mortal, his beloved Jane Foster, to Asgard and try to turn her into an immortal. Odin knows Loki's history for bullshit, but he also knows what his eyes are showing him, that, Thor does have a mortal here. So he's not sure what to do. And so the only way to settle this is with the trial of the gods. Silence, I know too well the cunning of thy tongue, ruthless Loki. Odin shall not be deceived. And yet I must believe the evidence of mine eyes. It seems the god of thunder has finally gone too far. Thus naught remains but for me to order the trial of the gods. And, Thor asks him for 48 hours to get Jane settled on Earth, get his affairs in order, and then he'll come back for the trial of the gods. And again, great name, the trial of the gods, a great idea of setting up this big epic, that's gonna, weave into the next plot, the plot of the next issue. Now, the drawing here, if you look at the scale of the figures, if Thor were to stand up, he'd be towering over Odin. Like just like the one part of his leg is almost as long as Odin's entire leg in the way feet are both on the same horizon line. But I think, Jack Kirby, it's all about making a cool picture. So I don't think Thor really towers over Odin. It's possible. I can't think of another time where we saw like where their feet were and where, their heads were, to kind of, I don't know offhand another panel where we see the size comparison between the two, but I assume that Thor and Odin are supposed to be the same size. And if one of them's taller than the other, maybe Odin's a little taller, or maybe Thor's a little taller, but I don't imagine that Thor would tower over Odin. I think it's just Jack wanted to have the full body shot of Odin with this cool costume, and he didn't want to have to cut off this super cool helmet. So he just kind of, squished him down a little bit to fit that super awesome helmet. Thor just like rockets past the Rainbow Bridge, Jane in arms with the inking. Oh, and I forgot to mention the inking. This is Frankie Ray, also known as Frank Giacoia. A lot of people's contention for Jack Kirby's best inker. And I have my preferences, but I can't argue with that. Frank Giacoia is one of my favorites too. And the beauty of his inking to me is he has the accuracy and faithfulness of Royer, but then he's also got kind of a looseness and a life to his inking that is a really nice balancing act, a really nice best of both worlds. And so he is great. He is one of the greats. My personal favorite is Royer, but Giacoia is a pretty strong contender, in my opinion. He takes care of Jane Foster, sets her down on a nice comfy couch in his office, and then he rockets off. This, again, we are up to our knees in prime time Marvel. The awkwardness is over. We got ongoing interweaving subplots. We have, dynamic layouts that, we have rocketing narrative propulsion, nonstop action. And then, like the bulky, Kirby figures and just, epics, this massive scale. We're seeing some really cool compositions that are just like rocketing Thor because he's racing against the clock. Absorbing Man's intimidating this couple. She throws a crystal vase at him. It shatters against him, but then he takes in the crystal, becomes sort of a crystal man, and shows them how his powers work. He can grab the curtain and become Curtain Man. He can grab a bronze statue and become Bronze Man. And there's nothing they can do about it. The police are setting up a dragnet to find him. Thor shows up. They're closing in on him. They're getting close, and Thor's going to take it from here, and he's going to go check out this house. Great composition. And he looks in the window and sees, there he is. And now I love this is another element of the Marvel formula, the heroism of the average person. And so this guy, keep your hands off my wife, bam, gives this guy, everything he's got. But he grabbed onto his ball and chain, and now he's becoming Ball and Chain Man. And then Hobbs shows up. Hold it, Creel. The house is surrounded. You haven't a chance. And he's about to, whack this guy over the head with this thing. He makes a run for it. The Absorbing Man just basically doesn't bother like going through the door. He just smashes through the wall. Now it's him. The police are there. They got bazookas, as imposing a Marvel powerhouse villain as you're ever going to see. Thor throws his hammer, great flash of light from the impact. Hammer comes back, great half-page giant drawing of the two struggling, similar to the composition of the cover of the previous issue with Hammer against Ball and Chain. He's swinging his ball and chain around. Thor's ducking. Look how great this is. Another epic battle. This is, I guess, Thor versus Loki is one thing. It's sort of power versus cunning. Now we have two powerhouses, so a lot closer to, what we would see in the New Gods of Orion versus Kalibak. Thor's pouring on the heat from his hammer, a power I don't know that we've seen yet. And then from the flame, he becomes a human torch. Everybody's moving into position to fire off like a little missile, a little rifle grenade. And the Absorbing Man bats it right back. And it looks like Thor throws up a magical shield from his hammer to keep these guys from getting blown up by it. Although the verbiage, which I'm assuming is Stan's verbiage, does not go along with it. It describes something different. But just judging from Kirby's drawings, that seems to me what's happening. He's batting this right back at these guys, and Thor's putting up a shield to block them and contain the explosion. And since the explosion got barreled back to the Absorbing Man, it kind of stunned him. Again, this is an epic. This is an intense battle, and he decides he's taking it to the limit. He's going to absorb all the power of the earth and become sort of Earthman, this giant colossus made of wood and stone and metal ores, residing in the ground, and what a beautiful drawing, as only Jack Kirby could imagine. And you think of Marvel Comics coming out, and Sinbad movies and stuff. It's a great time to be a kid. He's just growing and growing. Thor's tiny at this point. He's swinging his hammer. Got some ads. This is what's going on in the rest of Marvel. We got the Red Skull stories happening in the Captain America comics. One of those flashback issues. Spider-Man goes to a psychiatrist and starts hallucinating, or seemingly hallucinating. Won't spoil the reveal there. And now I love this panel. It's I'm sure Steve Ditko would love this panel too. It reminds me of like a Captain Atom or something. But Thor is spinning his hammer at such speed and such force that he's creating like a cyclotron. He's creating sort of like nuclear power at this point. He's going at atomic speed and sends that nuclear power right at the Absorbing Man and turns him into a living mushroom cloud. The ground beneath is glass now. We're seeing the result, like on a smaller scale, the results of a nuclear explosion. And now Thor did a little bit of super chemistry. Helium, he absorbed the quality of helium gas. There, see for yourself. And so this nuclear chemical experiment that Thor performs turns the Absorbing Man into vapor, which floats off into space, presumably never to be seen again, but who knows? And all this explanation about helium, like I think, Kirby had him create like a nuclear bomb, and it turns Absorbing Man into a nuclear bomb, and and that's something that's going to take him a while to recover from, and he just kind of becomes this wispy aftermath that like floats into space. But I think Stan, may be mindful of the comics code, just said, he turned him into helium, and going out of his way to explain that he's going to be okay, that Thor did not murder the Absorbing Man. The Absorbing Man is not floating off into space and is just this like dead, gaseous, like almost like a goat, like Thor turned him into a ghost or something, like he's just a ghost. But in any event, either way you slice it, this is awesome. Ooh, I wanted a scoop, but no newspaper would print a yarn like this. I'll have to sell it to a science fiction mag. It would require the wisdom of Odin for any mortal to say where science ends and fiction begins. And so now they say their goodbyes, and Thor's time is running out. That 48 hours is running out. He flies away. And these two are have sort of a happily ever after. And I was so proud of your courage, my darling. Now Thor races back as the time is ticking down to get one last look at Jane Foster. For if I fail the trial of the gods, this will surely be my final look. But then at that moment, the eyes of Odin looking as, terrifying as possible. Your time has come, Thunder God. The trial awaits thee. I hear and I obey. To Asgard, then. Loki will have had all this time to prepare for our trial, and yet I must never waver. Whatever my fate, I shall face it like a god. Thus the god of thunder strides unflinchingly towards the shimmering lights of Asgard to face the mysterious trial of the gods. Next issue, you shall be among the first mortals ever to behold this startling spectacle. Till then, may the blessings of the gods be showered upon thee. So be it. So, you always keep, you can wrap up some plot threads, but you always keep enough dangling to like fuel the next issue. This is the Marvel formula. And we're going to see Jack and Stan play with it, refine it, do all kinds of things with it. But this is it. We're getting it here. And making, each issue a trailer for the next issue. Like Trial of the Gods sounds really fucking awesome. And I've read the Trial of the Gods, and it is awesome. But if you don't know what it is, just hearing those names and seeing how, how dramatic everybody is about it. It's like these are major doings. And yeah, you're hooked. You're hooked. Oh, look at it. So like we're getting towards the end of an era of Fantastic Four at this time. This is there was sort of like this era of the Frightful Four where there's the ongoing soap opera of them dealing with the Frightful Four. And then after that, and the Frightful Four, drop a nuclear bomb on the Fantastic Four. So Kirby's got that in mind. The idea of heroes dropping nuclear bombs on their villains, villains dropping nuclear bombs on the heroes. the ratcheting up is reaching like a natural point. But then the next phase of Fantastic Four that happens shortly after this, blows all this stuff out of the water. Like they find a way of continuing to ratchet things up beyond, what you could imagine. And now a great Tales of Asgard. Once again, more of the early life of evil Loki, a viper in our midst. Gone, the most deadly of the storm giants, is about to attack Asgard as young Thor leads a task force to battle the Titanic invader. Once again, the art of illodrama reaches the pinnacle of classic perfection under the talented hands of Stan Lee, writer, Jack Kirby, illustrator, Vince Colletta, delineator, Artie Simic, letterer. And Jack Kirby is not just the illustrator, he's also the co-writer. I think next issue is where Vince Colletta takes over the entire book. And why not? Things are getting mythic. Trial of the Gods is basically like having a full-length story of Tales of Asgard. I think it just about takes place entirely in Asgard. So it's a natural segue. Great way to migrate Vinnie Colletta from here to just the rest of the book. Stand fast, the giant approaches. Now we shall prove our mettle. I should be leading this patrol rather than my accursed half-brother. I must find a way to make him fail. So yeah, this seems like it was sort of a common trope in the 60s. You see it in like, Fantastic Voyage, stuff like that. But the trope of like, there's a traitor. There's like one of the group is a saboteur sabotaging, the mission. And it fits with the Cold War motif of the 60s and of 60s comic books. But yes, and it's, to me, it does make for like, interesting drama. Like it's a good formula. Really cool looking, random helmeted warriors as they go into battle with a super cool looking giant with this, crazy, headdress thing. And just, I eat this stuff up. This is great. Throwing this giant boulder at everybody. Thor blocks it with his hammer. It smashes into a million pieces. Loki is plotting behind, doing whatever he can to hoping for Thor's failure. So he weaves a spell. This is another thing I love in these comics when, the magical characters spell out some kind of mystic rune in the air. Again, Jack Kirby, you're the greatest. And Loki, has got a whole new costume. Why not? He's got this, battle outfit. Everybody gets these like amazing makeovers except for Thor. Not until really, I guess, the Simonson era does Thor get to, join in the fun. Loki's given this guy a power boost. He lifts up this giant tree that's blocking all the spears, but even with Loki's help, it's too much. Then he must not escape us. Prepare to let loose the catapult. The sleep fumes within this container will make him lose the will to fight as soon as he inhales them. I love this stuff, this sort of thing this sort of looks like Kirby tech, but it's in this sort of long ago and far away, ye olden days. This is sort of the essence of what really made me interested in Kirby's work and made me want to make comics of my own, this sort of confluence of like the ancient and the yet to be. They launch it. There's no way he's still standing. He's knocked out by that. We won. Let's go find him. But they can't find him anywhere. And it turns out Loki, that rat, helped him get away, turned him into a bird to fly away. Let the giant Gon reappear once more. Loki, you have saved me from the vengeance of Thor. I know not what motives cause you to betray your own kind, but that is no concern of mine. Know you, Loki, that Gon is in your debt. I shall never forget it, gigantic one, and neither shall you. The day will come when I order you to repay this debt. Thus, I have made my first alliance with the forces of evil, with one of those who will come to my aid when I make my final bid, to overthrow the rule of Odin, destroy Thor, and seize the throne of Asgard. So we're seeing the pieces fall into place and how Loki put together his network of alliances that he'll draw upon in stories to come. And although it's not mentioned explicitly, I feel like, Kirby's planting the seeds for Ragnarok. The giants are part of, Loki's big army that is part of the final battle of the gods. So again, there's, this great narrative tension. It's such a great idea to have, this like flashback series telling you all the stuff that happened, before you were born, and planting seeds, and then having a contemporary series running at the same time. So you can, make this just really, really rich tapestry to draw from, which again, we see Kirby doing again at DC with New Gods. Boy, how about this for a classic? The Wally Wood issue of Daredevil with the Submariner versus Daredevil. And then we got, the Hammer Strikes. And then, he's looking for people who like to draw, recruiting the next generation of artists. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, and I Am Stan. And in the show notes below, you'll find a pre-order link where you can pre-order I Am Stan, which will be in comic stores in August and in other book retailers in September. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time for Thor's Day Comics.